So in
Okay.
last session, we saw supplier request. Once supplier request is done, we saw the workflow, and once supplier request is approved, now next process is registration. Okay. We also saw SLP features, like whatever the features that SLP provides, like supplier dashboard management, registration, qualification, disqualification management, preferred supplier management, certificates and all. Okay. So once supplier request is approved, okay, we can go for registration, and registration also has a two type: internal registration and external registration. It's a two stage or two type process. Okay. So we know we have two system. One is Ariba spend management, and one is Ariba network. Okay. Network. In spend management, buyers are doing activities, and here in Ariba network, suppliers are doing their activity. Okay. Like in similar way, in registration, in internal registration, it will happen in Ariba spend management. And when it comes with the external registration, it happens here in Ariba network. So in internal registration, buyer will do this activity. Okay. Buyer is owner. And where external registration, supplier will do this. Okay. So why registration is important? So onboarding supplier is itself is a two-step process. Number one is supplier request, and number two is registration. Within these two steps, once these two steps are completed, supplier is onboarded. We can onboard officially into ERP system. We can integrate this supplier, or we can do the transaction activity with this suppliers once it is registered. In many companies standalone application, those who has a standalone application, okay, they don't need to go for registration. Okay, so they can directly do the transaction with invited supplier or with their user ID and realm. Okay, so they don't need to go for registration, they don't need Ariba network access and anything. Okay, but that is in case of only standalone process where they don't have SLP. Means if you don't have SLP, still you can do the transaction activities with the suppliers. Okay, you don't need to have Ariba network, you don't need to send the POs and all these things. Okay, so always remember, we can go ahead with Ariba network, whether it is integrated supplier, whether they want to onboard, whether they do they have SLP or not. Okay, it doesn't matter. If any customer, any organization who is implementing Ariba, if they don't have SLP, they can do a sourcing activity with them. Okay. Anytime in interview, they ask the question whether you can go ahead. I haven't purchased any SLP module, but I want to go with the sourcing activities or RFP activities. Okay. So for that, still they can go ahead with their sourcing activities. Okay. SLP is not showstopper for them, but for better management, they go for SLPs. Okay, supplier management. Clients who has many suppliers or thousands of suppliers, and they want all suppliers to be onboarded, and they have multiple transactional activities. Okay, they purchase the SLP as well. And Ariba Suite is a combined package. Ariba Suite is like Ariba sourcing, SLP, and contract. It comes with the three solution: sourcing, contract, and SLP. So in a request, okay, I will just show you. So supplier request, we'll go for directly practical. I'll show you how suppliers get onboarded, how get registered, what are the important questionnaires which we need to ask in registration. And last time we saw, just this is just a request where we just ask a basic questionnaires: name, number, details. That's it. Okay. But when it comes to the registration process, we need to have more and deep understanding of the supplier, about their transaction activities, their banking details, taxes, any due diligence questionnaires if we have, compliance regarding questions if we have, any certificates we want from supplier. That is done in supplier registration. We don't do that things in request, because in request form it is just a basic information. Okay, so I will just go for one entire process where I will go for supply request, then approval flow, registration, approval flow. Once it is registered, internal questionnaires, external questionnaires. Okay, all these things we will see in this session. Yes. So now I'm creating supply request. Okay, similar way. It is 07. Once the supply request is submitted, category we have to select by region and department. Submit the subs request. So buyer will do this activity. Once this is submitted, you can check what all activities or what all suppliers are requested. See, supplier request, supplier name, test 0907. Current status is approval. Now I will just approve it. Approved. Confirm done. Now it will show supplier, new supplier created. Right now it is gray color. Once it is approved, test 007 is approved. Okay, need to check. Now supplier 360 profile got created. In, to invite supplier registration, start internal registration and invite. So internal registration, as we saw, there are two types: internal registration and external registration. So if on the behalf of supplier, if buyer is doing this activity, so it will be internal registration. And if it is all the questionnaire is submitted by supplier, it means it is external activity. So for external, doing external activity, we have to onboard the supplier. For onboarding means we have to invite supplier. For inviting, we have to click here to see once supplier is registered, this SM vendor ID, ERP ID, and ACM ID is created. But ANID is not available. Why? ANID is created once supplier is registered, once he submit his details in Ariba network. That time ANID gets created. Okay, now I'm inviting. You will see how ANID is created. So I'm inviting him. Invite. Okay, you can see questionnaire is document here. Document supplier registration questionnaires. Okay, so there may be chances while implementing, they will ask us to submit a different questionnaires for different region, different questionnaires for different department as well. Okay, so in registration, we have to set the questionnaire is that which department we are going to register. If it is for any admin department, so admin department might have different questionnaire set. Okay, in supply chain or in any like branding department, department will not have a similar question which admin department is required. Okay, so in the on the basis of region, like suppliers, Indian supplier might have different questionnaires, UK supplier might have different questionnaires. Okay, US supplier will have different questionnaires. That set of questionnaires ID we can set. Okay, once it is set here, it is only single questionnaire is set. On the basis of that we are doing this registration, but while implementing there may be chances. Okay, so we have to keep in mind that multiple set of questionnaires we can set as per the region, department, and commodities as well. Okay, now I'm sending this request to the name which is already we have filled this detail. Okay, test name or whatever the details we have done, I can just go and send the invitation, but I will edit the email ID here. Now I'm going to invite this supplier. Where to click? Once we have clicked on invitation, registration invitation in progress. Once it is complete, you can view registration details. So right now we don't have anything here in registration, nothing. We just send the invitation. Okay, complete in registration. Status is in registration. It means we have invited this vendor and registration is in progress. So supplier will receive. Now supplier email ID is this. Okay, we have to check supplier email ID to go and check supplier email ID here. We are inviting supplier. So this is how supplier will receive invitation email. Now I have to click on this one, create account. So supplier has to come on Ariba network. So this is the first time he has to click on link. Now new link will open. So where he has to, this is the first time that supplier is coming on board. So he has to go for sign up process. Okay. So in sign up process, he has to, these details we have already filled, right? In supply invitation email. Okay. User ID and password. Okay. So we have to give the products and services. So as a buyer or the person who has to onboard the supplier, he should have the knowledge what supplier is doing in his screen. Okay. So buyer should know what all activities while onboarding supplier has to do. So he has to give username, password, then he has to select the product and services. So I will give a basic metal work. Okay, I'm doing. So shift to service location, I'm giving Pune as a service location. Then I have to click on this agreed button and create account. Okay, so if you see company setting, name, feedback, help, messages. Now this will be the dashboard. Okay, you can click on there. You can go and visit the dashboard. So now he is on Ariba network. Okay, and right now there is no event, risk assessment is nothing. So right now registration questionnaire is in open status. Okay, so he can see what activities or what event is going on currently. So registration activity is going on. So he has to click here in registration. Okay. So he can come onboarded on registration page. In registration, we have set up these questionnaires at the backend. Okay. Now supplier is submitting. Now this is activity that supplier is doing. He is submitting his details. Okay. Supplier name. I'm giving test 907. Country, I can select this country is India. Telephone number 08080. Dummy telephone number I'm giving it. If you want to give a detailed address, you can show the detailed address as well. Internet home speed, which is just your website details I'm giving. Are you so next question 1.7 question. Okay. 1.8. Are you willing or able to transmit and receive the trans, traditional procurement and account payable documents such as purchase order, order confirmation, advance shipment notification, and invoice electronically via Ariba network? So this question buyer is asking. So I'm saying yes, I want all these transactional documents to be on Ariba network. Next is, are you willing to able to provide electronic catalog content via Ariba network? Whether if we are onboarding the supplier for Ariba catalog, so are you willing to submit the catalog via Ariba network? Okay, so yes, I am able to submit the catalog or Ariba network as well. These tax details, our recipient can create the tax invoice. Yes, if required, yes, we can go ahead for yes. If it is not required, buyer will select I don't want a recipient to create the tax invoice. they will do. As per the business, we have to define these questionnaires. This questionnaire is currently, this is just for the learning purpose, so I will say yes. Okay, but all these questionnaires, whatever the required details from supplier, we can define it as per the requirement while implementing. So while implementing, a client will suggest you what all questionnaires they required in registration template. Okay, so now first is general details, supplier details we have done. Okay, next is second question, bank details. Okay, if you see all content, you can see all the content which is required. To be specific, this is general supplier question information, bank information, tax information. You can navigate like this. Okay, test section, contact details. Fifth question is contact details. Okay, so now we have submitted the general details. Now I will go for the bank information. Okay, in bank information, I need to give you the bank details now because I'm going to do transactional activities. Why bank details and everything is required? Because I'm going to have a transaction with this purchase or this supplier. So I need bank details for that supplier as well. So I add bank information. So bank type, it is domestic. You can navigate like this. Region, region is India. Bank name, HDFC. This is Pune. Street is this. eh, Postal code, account holder name. Okay, any bank key, a routing number. That supplier is going to provide these things. Okay, account number. Okay, IBAN number. I'm just giving this a dummy number. There is a list of files that not showing so but this is not mandatory. I will just keep it blank. So sometimes we ask the passbook as well, right? Okay, so I'm asking if any reference or any evidence if he has to submit the details as well. So I'm getting submitted a document here related to bank details. So along with the information, I'm asking their details as well as an attachment or as a proof. Okay, once this bank detail is submitted, I will just go and submit, save. Okay, so bank information saved. We'll go for the tax information now. And tax information, region wise tax information or region wise details we required. Okay, GST numbers, yes, we have GST number, so I will just give a test GST number, PAN number, VAT registration number. Now it is not required. Please attach official supporting document that support the tax information. So here question is for attachment, but they have given a date here, but this is wrong. Okay, if you see, it should be attachment here, right? If we are asking attachment, it should be attachment, not date. Okay, so I will just select any random date and in comment I will add attachment. To go here and add attachment, I'm adding attachment. Okay, so in this section I'm giving you tax information. So supplier is submitting their tax information, tax details. Now next is test section. Are you certified? Yes, we are certified. If yes, where you have completed certification? From Pune, I will just give Pune. So if any certification that buyer required, that supplier has to give, okay, then he will ask this questionnaire is okay. The next is please sign, attach and upload. So buyer has submitted one reference document where supplier has to check this reference document. On the basis of this reference document, once he is signed, buyer has to sign and supplier has to sign and attach it. Now I'm attaching it. Now fourth section we have completed. If you see section 4 out of 5 we have completed. Next, you can save as a draft if there are multiple questionnaires or long questionnaires, and if it is taking time, you can save as a draft as well. Now, last one is contact details. Contact details, go to add contact details. We are providing contact details. Save. So, if you go ahead and check all the contents, we have submitted all the details which buyer required from supplier. Tax details, we got bank information, we have received basic questionnaires, question answers we received, the internet homepage, website we received, okay, transaction information, email address for purchase order, email address for account receivable, we received these things as well. Okay, so once we have to submit this entire response. So if you see which top skill this question got missed, okay, which top skill and expertise we have to give in a top skill. So manufacturing, we are into manufacturing or service, we can say service, we are good in service. Okay, so I'm submitting that answer. You can see any red highlighted question it is there or not. Eh, right now there is nothing. I will just go ahead and submit. So we can't go ahead without leaving any questionnaires blank or mandatory questions we need to give answer. This is submit entire response. Click on okay. So response has been submitted. Thank you for the participating in the event. So now this response which buyer has, sorry, supplier has submitted, buyer can check in their dashboard. Okay. To supplier management and registration. You see right now, earlier it was in registration. Now supplier has submitted questionnaires, so approval for supplier registration it is showing. It means this in registration process is completed. Next process is in approval. Okay. If you see registration status pending for approval. If you want to see the questionnaires, this is external questionnaires. All questions which supplier has submitted, bank information, GST details, you can see, you can get overview of all the questions that supplier has submitted. Okay. Right now it is in pending for approval. You can see whether this is internal registration or external registration. You can see the registration type is external registration. Okay. So sometimes they ask you how we can identify whether this is internal registered supplier or external registered supplier. So you can see here in navigation is in supplier dashboard. You can go in registration. And registration, you can check the registration questionnaires type. So we can understand whether this is external registered or internal registered. Okay. Now again, one more thing. If you go ahead and check, earlier there was no ANID available. Now supplier has created his ANID, AN account, Ariba network account. You can see Ariba network ID is here. Okay. Earlier only three ID was available: ERP ID, SM vendor ID, and ACM ID. Now AN ID is available. If you go ahead, check registration. So sometime you will get the question is in interview when AN ID is created. So now when AN ID is created, when supplier is onboarded, then AN ID is created. Onboarded means when supplier has submitted their internal questionnaires or supplier has created an account, then ANID is created. Now still supplier is not yet onboarded because supplier registration process in approval. If you go ahead for approval, who is the owner of this approval? Project owner. So you can see questionnaire is here and task here. So approval for supplier registration. Who is approver? Project owner. Now in approval, now you can go ahead and check. You can see all the details, responses which we have received from supplier, okay, and approve it. So I'm going to approve this supplier. If I want any other questions, I can ask additional questions as well. Okay. If you see approval for supplier registration by project owner, now it turned to green. It means this task is approved. Now second task is complete internal registration questionnaires. So internal registration questionnaires is this is internal one. Okay, you can navigate in questionnaires internal registration question. So this system is designed once supplier has submitted their detailed questionnaires, their buyer has to check and submit internal questionnaires as well. Okay, so now buyer has to check, go to internal questionnaires. He has to check what all internal questionnaires are available. He has to go and edit the internal questionnaires. If you see account group, language, do you want to apply for central block for posting the invoice? Okay, all these are the internal questionnaires. Why you want to block this questionnaire? Why he has to submit it? Because if the supplier is not regarding for, we are not going to do any invoice activity with that supplier, or we have to block that supplier for invoicing, we can go ahead and tell that yes, we have to block that supplier. Okay, that's why the internal questionnaires are important. Oh, we have to set up whether this company code, we have to allocate this company code for any other company code, or any account accounting clerk, if you want to assign any accounting clerk for this supplier. Okay, payment term, if we have to give any other payment term apart from the payment term which is defined by default. Okay, we can set all that internal questionnaires. And once this internal questionnaire is done, now this is the internal task, that's organization internal buyer's task. So buyer has to do this thing. Okay, so I'm giving purchase organization. Purchase organization is, I will give Tata Motors Nashik. Okay, what is the minimum order value for that supplier? Minimum order value I will give this much. Okay, please mention yes or no. Yes, provide bank document, I can upload the bank document. There may be chances that sometimes supplier will miss details, or supplier may uh, give wrong information, so buyer can check and submit details as well. Okay, in code terms I will just X work. Okay, so now submission, this internal questionnaire is submitted. So buyer has submitted this internal questionnaire. Now project owner has to approve this one. Now I have completed this task. I will just go ahead and mark it as complete. Project owner is owner of this person who is doing these activities. Okay, so done. Supplier is registered. So in this way we can onboard the supplier. So still supplier is registered, but the supplier is not available in the backend. Okay, I will tell you how we are sending the supplier the backend. So any question till this step, anything which you required. Right
Mhm.
now it is registered. If you see now, earlier there was only two questions: supplier request and registration. Now qualification is also there. Okay, so in next session we'll see qualification as well. So at basic, like, to onboard supplier, this two-step activity we have to complete. Okay, so most of the organization are using this two-step, and qualification they don't want to qualify. Okay, they don't want to go for this feature qualification. So what they will do, they will directly from registration, they will send this data, that supplier details, to external system. How we can send this supplier details? So we have to go to ERP data. Okay, you can see all vendor information, organization details, organization ID, ANID, if you see. Okay,
Mhm.
bank details, tax information. Okay, So entire payload is created now. It will create a payload. Okay. These are the questionnaires. Okay. Now, if you click on this is not synced to ERP. The supplier is not synced to ERP. To sync the supplier to ERP, we have to click on sync now. Once it is synced, then the supplier payload is sent to ERP, and ERP has to approve, means MDG team will approve the supplier. Then ERP ID will get created, and this is the integration part. In integration session, I will show you how this actually works. Okay.
Mhm.
Once ERP ID is created, so again another ERP ID it will show you here, vendor ID. Okay, ERP vendor ID it will show you. Right now this is standalone process, so ERP vendor ID it is showing only this one. So for this one, so you may ask supplier, means in interview they will ask you how you will integrate the supplier. Okay, so once registration is completed, you have to click on sync now. Okay, if you click on sync now, then in the backend syncing in progress. In the backend, this entire payload, this banking detail, ERP detail, purchasing data, it will available in backend. MDG team has to approve. Once it is approved, ERP ID is created. ERP ID is created, then again payload will come to Ariba and it will show as a sync supplier.
Mhm.
Okay. Currently this is not connected. I can show you, but this is the process. You just have to understand how we have to complete the process. Okay.
Okay.
In integration part, I will show you, like in if possible practical, I will show you how these things actually works. Payload and everything, I will show how to read the payload, where exactly sometimes while onboarding suppliers, so there is a problem. Okay, how to identify that problem, how you can solve that problems. Okay,
Okay.
so now we have completed registration. We'll go for qualification, disqualification in next sessions, and then preferred vendor. Okay, then once supplier onboarding and supplier think SLP part is completed, we'll go for the sourcing activities. So yes, that's it for today, guys.